Get your coffee and join me today on GHC Coffee Break with Lisa and Wendy from Tapestry Hospice. Get your coffee.
I'm transferring to the University of West Georgia.
Columbia University.
Kennesaw State.
UGA. Loyola University in Chicago.
Grambling State.
Shorter University. I'm going to Greensboro College, and we all got our start at Georgia Highlands.
No matter where your educational journey takes you, you can get your start at Georgia Highlands College. Georgia Highlands College. Enroll, engage, excel.
Welcome back to GHC Coffee Break. I'm excited about my guests today, Wendy and Lisa from Tapestry Hospice. Say that fast 3 times. Welcome to my living room. I'm excited that you're here. It is a hard subject because when we talk, and can be sad when we talk about dying. One of the things that a friend of mine used to tell me is that she knew 2 things. One, that she was going to die, and that she's going to have to pay taxes. She said those are 2 things I know for sure, and that's pretty accurate. I look at death as being something in the between. I'm living. I choose to live, and I choose to live it as full as I can. I've had 2 children who have died, and so it's a choice to live. At some time, I will die, and I know that. But I'm hoping to help people understand what hospice is and how beneficial it can be. So I guess what we're going to kind of just start talking about, and whoever wants to jump in, what is really hospice? Explain to our audience, what is hospice and why is it important to understand it?
Well, hospice is the care of chronically ill or terminally ill patients. And going back to what you said, choosing to live, hospice is about living every day until you pass on. And that's what we want to give patients, is the benefit of having that quality of life when the quantity maybe is not a choice.
Yeah, and death is one of those taboo subjects. Mm-hmm. I mean, I remember growing up, we didn't talk about sex. Well, now they talk about sex everywhere. But now we still don't talk about death. And we're afraid to say the words. I teach a death, dying, and grieving class, and the first day of class, I'm giving one of my secrets away, so if you're taking my class in the spring, but I get them to list the things that we've heard: passed on, passed away, gone to heaven. We even make them do funny ones like bit the dust, pushing up daisies, worm dirt, or worm food, because I want them to get comfortable. We use euphemisms because we don't want to say death and died and dead. It's like a taboo word and a dirty word. We're not supposed to say that. So, to me, when we bring hospice in, it's really being able to be comfortable with that word and with living, because it's not just a death sentence. I actually know someone who was in hospice, but actually was able to come off hospice, live 3 or 4 more years before she did ultimately die. She had cancer, but she came off of hospice for a while. It was not a death sentence, but that's what I think the myth mentality is.
Well, and people do come off hospice, not all the time, but right. I think that they become comfortable with their diagnosis and they make choices, and you become in complete control of your own health care. And I always say it's like a village. You have your physicians, your nurses, your volunteers. Everybody comes together, and your family and the patient, and makes the decisions about the health care and where you're going to go each day together. And ultimately, that patient is in control of their health care. And you don't always have that if you're not on hospice.
And I think you said something, to me, you hit the $1 million word, is you're in control of your own destiny, so to speak. Yeah, I'm going to die, but what am I going to do in the meantime?
Right.
So tell us a little bit about, Why would someone go into hospice, and how that I guess how the system works?
As a patient?
Yes.
Well,
Or a patient's family member.
if you have someone that's chronically ill or terminally ill, then it's as easy as getting a doctor's order just for a nurse to come out and evaluate the patient. Once the nurse comes out, there's certain criteria that you have to meet. It is paid for by insurance. It's paid for by Medicare as 100%. A lot of insurances pay 100%. And then if you meet the criteria, then we set...
What are some of the criteria? If you can kind of just...
Well, it's so patient specific.
Okay.
Because you could have a patient that is just demented, that has Alzheimer's or dementia, that doesn't have any other health problems. But because of the stage of their disease, they qualify for hospice.
Okay.
But you may have someone that, and I'm just using Alzheimer's and dementia as a baseline, that has Alzheimer's and is not as far along as that one patient that has no other disease processes going on, but this person may have diabetes, CHF, COPD, other things that come together, and all these comorbidities would then qualify them a little sooner than someone else. And then of course you have patients that have cancer. We have patients that just have kidney disease or COPD. I mean, you don't have to have just cancer to be on hospice.
And all ages?
All ages.
So, I mean, you can actually serve children that need hospice too.
Yes.
So, all right, I qualify. I fit one of the qualifications, and I come to you guys, and I'm nervous. I'm like, I know I've been diagnosed with this, and I'm having to deal and I want to live as long as I can. I want to have a quality of life. You know, what do I do now?
Well, like I said, it's kind of becomes a village. Everybody comes together. You have the chaplain, the social worker, the nurses, the physicians that we have on staff. You can keep your own physician. It's just depending on whether that physician wants to stay on board and what your choice is. And everybody comes together with the family and the patient and makes a decision of what's important to this patient, and what steps do we want to take. And it's just very patient specific.
Okay. So I want to live at home during this time.
Most of the patients that are on hospice are at home. We do have patients in the hospital and the nursing homes and assisted living, but primarily your hospice patients are at home. They choose to be at home. That's where they're most comfortable.
What kind of supports am I going to get? My husband has to work. I'm dying. He has to still work. What am I going to do?
Well, it depends on what stage of the disease you're in. If you're still, as hospice, you can be on hospice and go to the mall every day, or go get out and about. We don't want you to stay at home. We want you to get out and live. So if you're in that stage of disease, then you're not going to need our support. But as the disease progresses, then we are there with sitters, and bath nurses come in to help bathing and feeding and things like that. So again, it's so patient specific. We're there, the resources are there, and then as disease progresses, we pick up and help you get along.
And I think, my father-in-law died from ALS. And so I'm kind of, I wish he would have gotten into hospice before he got before he progressed into the disease so far. They were actually, and in this case, we got it, because I hear a lot of people, oh, well, that means it's a death sentence and I'm going to die next week. And I think it's that stigma in fear. So I'm trying to kind of take a patient view if I was coming to you, our family member. And unfortunately, he did not ever make it into hospice because he died before they finalized everything and got moving on the paperwork. But I can remember the progression, as you said, he did. In July of '99, he was in a wheelchair. He had been diagnosed probably only a few months before. He progressed really fast. Once they got a diagnosis, he progressed very fast. By August, because I remember July 4th, we went up and took pictures of the family and us being around him and had kind of like a party. But by August, he was totally incapacitated. He had ended up in the hospital. And I look back at my mother-in-law and him and the service that I know now that hospice couldn't do. This was in '99. The things that they can do and help the family. Like you said, the sitter, for her to she was afraid to leave him alone. So to have someone to come in, just so I can go to the grocery store, just so that she could go to church or whatever, you know. And she didn't do those things. The medical aspect of it. Now they did, the hospital and his other interests and stuff did take care of making sure he had the right kind of hospital bed and that kind of stuff in the home. But she was blessed that she got to stay in the home. Now he did die in the hospital, which I think was really hard for her. So I think as someone seeing that, I look back at my daughter's progression. She had a idiopathic viral cardiomyopathy. She'd had 2 heart transplants. Hindsight, she died in the hospital. Hindsight, I wish I would have. I think I was in denial that, because we'd gone through so many different crises, that this was the crisis that she wasn't going to come back from. The day she went into the hospital was, and she was so mad at me. She was already 18, but I convinced her, look, this is not good, what's going on? And besides, we got to go in for a biopsy in the morning. And we went in, and she was mad because one of her best friends was supposed to come over to her house. Hindsight, I wish I hadn't insisted. She would have had that last time with her friend. Now, I was very fortunate. I was there when my baby came into this world, and I was there when my baby left. I got to hold her in my arms when she died in the hospital. She was there. So I know, having gone through that, how much more powerful hospice could have been. But I can tell one thing, I knew, and I think the good Lord knew this about me, I could not have walked in to her apartment. She got in her little apartment. I could not have walked into that apartment and found her dead. I don't think I could have. I think he knew that would have been the straw that broke the camel's back, and I wasn't coming back from that. But I was there with her, and I think I see that as hospice's role, yes. that they're not alone, that they're part of the family until that no longer exists.
That's true, and patients that go on hospice statistically live longer than patients that don't, especially if they go on it sooner in their disease progression. Yes. Because you have the support. You're involved in your care, you know where you're headed, and you can kind of relax. It's not every day wondering, oh gosh, you know, because we have so much support in the home with the volunteers and the nurses and the chaplain and the social workers. It's a complete village, and I promise everybody just kind of, you become part of those families. Yeah.
I love how you keep referring to it as the village, because I think you hit the nail on the head. It's your family, it's your friends, it's the people that are coming into hospice that they truly, and I have a great video I show my class called Letting Go. It really does truly show the bond and the ability to let go when it's time, and not to feel so isolated. I saw how the chaplain come in, and the video's great. I saw how the chaplain came in. I saw how the nurse came in and provided the support, the volunteers. You know, this whole group of people, they wouldn't be in that field if they didn't care and really want to be in it, because it's a tough field.
And it's like I said before, there's people that don't have family members. There's people that are out there that's by themselves, that live by themselves, and we become their family. Hospice becomes their family. We're there with them when they take their last breath, so that they're not by themselves.
And see, to me, that's an amazing part, because I I've always said I don't want to die alone, and so to know that there's that person, family member or a volunteer. I have family, but like you said, not everybody does, and that's kind of naive to think, oh yeah, they're going to be surrounded by family. My husband's boss one year, he was not a very nice person. He died alone, and I thought, oh, I would never want to die alone. So I think we have to make sure that in hospice, that's one of the valuable things about what it does.
Yes, it is. It is, and we have patients now that don't have any family members, and we're like Wendy said before, we're their village, we're their family.
And that's very powerful. I know it's a hard field, and people would not be in it if they didn't want to be part of it. And so to me, that is really phenomenal to know, hey, I've got somebody that's on my side. Right there is where we're going to take a break. We'll be back, get your coffee, and join us for GHC Coffee Break.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds.
Hope you had a chance to get your coffee. We're back talking about hospice. Not an easy subject to talk about because it does deal with living and dying. And we kind of went out on break talking about that village. And my daughter died in '99. My father-in-law died in '99 of August. And that's really before the hospice movement got really started. I mean, it started, but it still wasn't really a well-known service. Wendy, I'm going to kind of let you talk a little bit about the history like that.
Well, I feel like since the year 2000, hospice has come a long way.
Yes.
It's more accepted. And I think people, this generation, are wanting to take care of themselves and take control of their own health care. They don't want to be in nursing homes or on treatment and having a poor quality of life when they can have other choices. They're educated and they use that and make choices that are good for them. You know, and I do a lot of education in the community. And a lot of referrals for hospice come from that because people hear, oh, I don't have to have cancer. I don't have to die next week. I can be on hospice now. And so a lot of times it's families and patients in the community that hear and are educated that go back to physicians and say, can I please have an order and let's let the nurses come out and evaluate because maybe I could qualify for this. And maybe I don't have to go to the hospital every week. Maybe I can stay home and, you know, the care come to me. So it's all about your choices and what you want.
I think it's really important too, and I just make no disrespect to the medical profession at all, but I think that the medical profession, they are so in tune and trained to fixing and curing and helping and getting you back on your feet and back in that they really are not trained to talk specifically about a patient dying. I remember a movie called Patch Adams. I'll never forget it. And he's a real doctor. And he went into this patient who was dying that, you know, oh, don't go in there. You know, he threw bedpans at him. But he went in one day and he said, kicking up or pushing up daisies, worm dirt. And they both started going back and forth. And they were finally able to have this wonderful conversation about living and how you live while you're dying. There's a song about live while you're dying. You know, I think that's so true. And like I said, it's no disrespect to the medical profession. They're just not trained to be able to sit down and talk about, we don't have anything else we can do. What would be your quality of life? How can we help you live while you're dying? Mm-hmm. So I think that's a great point.
Yeah, it's hard for families, physicians, nurses. It's a hard conversation, but it's important.
As a family member, when Felicia was dying, and because like I said, she'd had a lot of crises. So we thought, this is just one more. We'll be in a few, because sometimes we're in there a week, sometimes we're in there a couple of days, and then we'd be back home. And I just initially thought, this is just another one of those times. But what we found out, she's 18. We had to get a advance directive. And I was made the living will power of attorney, basically, to make medical decisions if she was unable to make it. And we put a little catalyst in there along with the doctors. So that helped a little bit, because it was like, and I remember one of the nurses asked, I said, I had left the room, and the nurse told me later what had happened. She said, Felicia, is this what you want to happen? Are you sure you're not feeling pressure? You know, she was making sure that Felicia wasn't getting too much from everybody and pushing her. Because she did allow herself to be put on the transplant list one more time, which she said, I don't want to do that again. I've been through it. I don't want to do this. And she came up later and told me, she said, Felicia, I asked Felicia if she was okay with this, and is this what she really wanted? And she says, my mom will know what to do, and she'll know when to do it. Powerful. Mm-hmm. That, the faith we had in each other. And it was a decision that my whole family made. My daughter, who was 10 at the time, I'm sorry, she was 14, I think, at the time. She was 10 when Felicia got sick. But, so she was 14 or 15. My husband, myself, we were there with her when she left. And that was so wonderful. Mm. So I know hospice does those kind of things.
Yes.
I also wanted to mention, I know that y'all are with Tapestry Hospice. Y'all have volunteer program. I don't want to leave Lisa out of this, because I think volunteerism, and I keep saying I want to volunteer more, and I've kind of talked to some hospice. I know it's been 99. Some days I feel like I'm ready, because I want to give that patient and that patient's family that love at the end, but sometimes I'm not sure if I'm quite ready yet. But talk just briefly about your volunteer program.
Our volunteer program is amazing. We not only go into homes, we go into senior living facilities, and our volunteers get to participate with seniors. We play bingo, we have penny auctions, we have singing, excuse me, we do yoga with the memory unit that the patients that have Alzheimer's and that kind of things. Our volunteers go in and do yoga with them. We have exercise class. It's not just going into someone's home or into a facility and just sitting with that person because they're dying. You have quality time and you have fun, as a volunteer with hospice. I mean, you really do. It's not just going and sitting with that person.
And I think that that's really important and some of my students are interested in volunteering at hospice. They have to do an internship. So we'll be talking about that a good bit. And there are several hospice agencies in our area. We have students all the way from Carroll County, Douglasville, Calhoun. I have a couple of students that are from Calhoun that we're always trying to make connections in not just hospice, but any agency in those areas. Rome, Cartersville, Jasper. So they're all over the place, and I know you guys are all over the place too. It sounded like when we talked. So briefly, your service area. Everywhere.
From Atlanta over to Alabama, down to Chattanooga.
Oh, wow.
LJ, back around to Atlanta, that whole area.
Rome.
Yes, everything in the middle of that.
Okay, the whole.
That whole area.
Wow,
Yes.
that's a big area.
Yes.
Again, I think this would be a very beneficial program on the volunteer side and the internship side as well.
Yes. Yes. With internships, they can follow the chaplains, they can follow the social workers, they can follow the nurses, they can follow the volunteer coordinator, they can follow the marketers, just to learn and see if that's something they're interested in.
And see, I like that. I like when an intern goes in, or when a student comes in for an internship, that they really do get to see each of those aspects. So they get. I believe in the whole picture, just like I believe in the holistic, and I think that's what hospice does, the holistic approach of the body, the family, the patient, the friends, the social supports, the churches, whatever it happens to be. But I look at that with my students. I want them to be able to go into an agency and truly understand the whole picture. I know one of the other things that they're just, I don't know if you guys do it, but there is twilight hospice as well too in some places, where if you're a volunteer, you volunteer to be there when it's imminent death. Do y'all do that?
We haven't had that yet, no, because most of our patients have, have family, but when they get to the point to where if they don't have family, then one of our nurses or someone like that is, but it's not something we couldn't look at to see if that's something they wanted.
And that's part of and I know it sounds, and I don't want to sound morbid in any way, but I think that's kind of where my heart is, because I know what it was like to be able to hold my daughter when she died, how important it is to be held. Quite honestly, I want to go to sleep and not wake up, but I hope somebody's there with me when that happens. But so, I think that's kind of where part of my heart is to be there and I don't want them to be alone, I guess. And I don't know.
But in the same aspect, if you're a volunteer, whether you're going into an assisted living, even though we may have patients in an assisted living and we go in with volunteers, you're going to include our patients, but we include the entire community.
Good.
But as a volunteer, you would want to specifically be with patients. We try to keep you with the same ones so that when that time would come, you are close to that patient.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, you're not sure if you're ready. I think it's very healing. And that's coming from a personal aspect, because having a father that died many, many years ago, I don't think I was ever over that or was able to come to terms with it until I started working in hospice.
Yeah.
And you really do see we're the ones that suffer in the end, because they get to go on and be at such a great and wonderful place, and we're left without that person.
Yeah, it's
so
empty.
It's very healing.
I think so too. Guys, Lisa and Wendy, thank you for being here. We got to take a short break. We'll be right back with GHC.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Nothing kills a buzz like getting pulled over for buzz driving, because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to GHC Coffee Break. Wendy, Lisa, thank you so much for coming and sharing your experiences with hospice and how important it is to talk about it, that we don't just keep putting it in the closet, that we bring it out and become comfortable with living while we're dying.
Yes.
Don't know when that time's going to be for each of us, but in the meantime, I want to live, and I want to say this is a very positive experience. Thank you, and join me next time on GHC Coffee Break.